Drinking with authors may contain adult content. Listener discretion is advised.
Hey everyone, I am Nick Savage, author of the Fairlane series, and tonight's episode, as always, is sponsored by Four Horsemen Publications. Check them out at fourhorsemenpublications.com. And joining us this evening, we have author J.R. Blaine's, author of Portraits of Decay, which takes the paranoia, I can talk, takes the paranoia and intimacy of Come Closer and pairs it with the visceral horror of A Head Full of Ghosts. Again, it's what's in this cup right here. Talking makes it hard. It is an immersive, haunting, and original novel. And I am reading this from a guy named Richard Thomas. So if he's saying it and I'm saying it, it is true. Always true. What are you drinking tonight?
So right now I've got a little spooky coffee cup, and I put a little Bailey's in with the coffee to give it a little kick here. So usually when I'm writing, I like to have coffee to kind of keep me awake and keep me going, but sometimes I like to add a little spice. Sometimes it's whiskey, sometimes it's Bailey's.
Bailey's and coffee, probably one of the best coffee drinks. I tried once. I wanted Jameson and coffee, and they didn't have coffee. They had espresso, which is slightly different. Like coffee snobs like me know the difference between coffee and espresso. And Jameson and espresso is definitely worth trying.
Oh, I'm gonna put that on my list. There's a place in New Orleans, since we're talking about my book, which takes place there, called Evie's, that they do a bunch of different coffee drinks with a bunch of different liquors in it. It's basically all their coffee drinks have liquor in it. I highly recommend going there and giving them a try, because they always have like new things coming out too, but they have a bunch of different ones, and they have a bunch of different whiskey and coffee or whiskey and espresso.
So here's my question about Evie's, because as someone who's been to New Orleans a whopping one time for my honeymoon, all my favorite places that were down there when we went have since closed down. So, and we were in the Garden District mostly, and we did go to the French Quarter and other places. Where is Evie's?
It's in the French Quarter. It's on Decatur Street.
Okay.
I don't remember what the cross street is, but it's not far from what's the famous beignet place that's skipping Dumont.
Yeah, Cafe Dumont's. Yeah.
It's on the opposite side, probably about a block or two away from there. Okay. But it's pretty recognizable. But yeah, it's on Decatur Street, right in the French Quarter.
Now, as someone who said they used to work, not me, you, on a private train car that went from Chicago to New Orleans, do you have a preferred beignet place down there?
I still love Cafe Dumont. I think it's actually probably the best place down there, honestly. Cafe Beignet is actually really good too. But I mean, even though it's a very touristy spot, I would say like that's still my number one place to go if I want beignets. Breakfast at Brennan's is really good too for beignets, but their breakfast in general is amazing. A little high end, but it's definitely excellent.
But worth the money if you're going to go and spend some money in New Orleans breakfast.
And if you're going to go to New Orleans, you better be willing to spend some money. So,
yeah. If nothing else, tip the street musicians, because they work hard to be as good as they are, and they are nothing to scoff at.
Not at all. And if you find the guy that will write you individual poetry on the street, definitely tip him too, because he's great. And he writes some great poetry based on just getting to know you for about a whole 2 minutes.
Oh, well, that's actually really cool. I have not seen him.
And he's got like the old school typewriter out there, and he's just sitting there on has a little box that it's sitting on, and he just sits there and types up stuff. Hopefully he's still down there. So it's been a little bit since it's been about 10 months since I've been down there. So hopefully he's still around.
Oh, that's a lot sooner than last time I was down there. So hopefully he's still down there too. Yeah. I haven't been down there since 2013.
That's a while. I think you need to go back.
I do. Me and my wife want to move there. We were like, we would love to retire here one day. And then we realized how expensive it is. And having moved to Florida, how much we hate hurricanes and don't want to live in a place that gets hit worse with hurricanes than where we live now. So as much as we love New Orleans, great to visit, don't really want to live there much anymore.
That I can understand that.
So tell me about, besides that it takes place in New Orleans, tell me about Portraits of Decay.
So Portraits of Decay is about an up-and-coming artist named Jefferson Fontenot, who's gotten his foot in a very popular gallery down in New Orleans called the Carondelet. But he's gotten this through his girlfriend at the time, a woman named Gemma Landry, who's kind of an art influencer and is kind of known for being someone who knows everybody in the art scene, but she's also kind of very possessive and very not popular in the sense that she rubs a lot of people the wrong way, including the owner of the Carondelet. But she is also interested in stealing the Carondelet. She wants it for herself. The problem is that she finds out that Jefferson is having an affair with his muse, the photographer Neva Parker. And when this happens, Gemma decides that she cannot let him go. So she goes to a swamp witch named Merlanda St. Pierre and gets a magical potion that puts him under his spell. And things go, as you can imagine, horribly wrong from there. So it's a tragic love triangle that has to do with art, obsession, voodoo, and black magic, and the differences between like voodoo and witchcraft. And then, of course, about the city of New Orleans.
That sounds wonderful. Now I have to ask about the names, because a lot of people, when they write, especially darker, horror, thriller, stuff like that, they tend to result to like, oh, his name is Mortimer or something that's, you know what I'm saying? And your names are a little more, they're not overly common. They're not like there's 8,000 girls running around in every town called Gemma, but it's not rare or hyper unusual. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Did you choose more normal names on purpose to make it more like, what was your thought process behind that?
I think, well, I was trying to think of Southern sounding names or names that would fit, in New Orleans. So, and names that I always try to find names that fit with my characters. So Gemma Landry, being that she's a white woman, being that she's someone who comes from wealth, someone who her parents are in real estate and they've kind of, made her into this type of person. I felt like that name just really fit that kind of personality. Jefferson Fontenot, obviously, a man of color, a man who hasn't come up with a lot of money or backing behind him, and someone who's very artistic. And I just wanted a name that sounded like it could be an artist name or a very famous artist name. So I really like that kind of. I mean, originally it was Jackson, but there's Jackson Square, so I didn't want that to be confusing.
Yeah.
And then Neva is actually, because she's someone who, as you'll see in the book, when you read it, has a lot of pain in her backstory. She's gone through a lot of things and she's survived a lot of things, to kind of come out a little bit more on top and a little bit and together. And so I wanted a name that fit that. And so her name is Heaven spelled backwards.
Nice.
Just someone that has reached out. So I really kind of thought that fit. So I'm always looking for names that fit all the characters, even minor characters that are in it. You have characters like Marcel and Camille, Camille is the owner of the Carondelet. Marcel is another artist that once dated Gemma and kind of got screwed over by her. So I'm always kind of like looking for the names, and I change names as I write constantly. So I always have editors that kind of like, why is this person suddenly named this? I'm like, oh yeah, shoot, I forgot to, I didn't catch it as I did my search and find.
Find and replace, yeah.
Yeah, but I also tend to try to have names that aren't completely out there, so people can kind of relate to them. Names that'll stick in your head, but they're not names that, like I said, I just made up. I would very rarely do that unless it's something like from outer space or, mattering on that kind of setting. If it was something I was writing, maybe a little bit, if I was writing something that was more dark fantasy or something, maybe I will do something like that. But as far as horror goes, usually I want something that's going to stick in someone's head and that relates to the character.
No, that's wonderful. Now, I come from a publisher that has a lot of authors who write series. Mm-hmm. And I know you are with a publisher whose name I want to not mispronounce. So I'm going to have you say it because it's
Ruodon.
Ruodon. Okay, so I would have said it right. I always worry, I don't like to mess things up. As you can tell from the opening where I stumbled every other word. If you can't make fun of yourself, you can't make fun of anyone else.
This is true.
Does your publisher do a lot of series, or are you like a one-off, like with your books where you're like, this is one book, this is another book, they're unrelated?
So me personally, my books are unrelated, but I think that I know they do have a series that they're coming out with from a particular author. I'm not allowed to say a whole lot about it because it's not out yet.
Yeah.
So I think they're kind of a mixed bag. I think that it matters on the author that they're working with and what that author is kind of has to offer. So for me, I won't say I'll never write a series, but at this point, that's not where I'm at writing. I like to have one done and then move on to something else. And
you're not missing anything with the series thing. It's
I hear it's a great thing to have as far as sell, but yeah, I know that there's been some stories where people got 1 and 2 done and then they didn't know what to do with 3, or so I think for me it would have to be something where I planned it, where I wrote however many books.
Yeah.
At least I would probably say the most I'd ever write would be 3 in a row. I don't know if I could actually get past that, but who knows? I don't know what the future entails. I just know what's in my head at the moment. Our single books, I'm shopping one now and I'm working on a new one at this point. So
no, that's wonderful. I've recently started doing one-off books where, not part of a series, and it's a different monster than trying to write a 3 or 5 or 7 or whatever book arc to have, the one book arc paired with the, series arc and everything like that. And just dealing with one book it's different and it's fun. So I'm actually kind of jealous that that's how you just default to.
I think a part of it too is I'm not a plotter, I'm a pantser. So a lot of times, and if people don't know what that means, a plotter is someone who plots their book before they write. A pantser is someone who just starts writing and sees where it goes. And I should say I'm a little bit of a mix, because once I have a rough draft, I will do a little bit of plotting on this, new drafts. But as far as like a first draft, I kind of just sit down and start writing to see where things go. So I think that's why I probably haven't taken on a series either. It's like I would feel like if I was writing a series, I'd have to know the bigger arc and the smaller arcs before I could start writing in that way. So that might be one reason I haven't done a series yet.
No. Trust. You said something where a series probably requires more planning and plotting, and it's fun because a lot of writers, we just want to stun and write. You know what I'm saying? We're just like, keyboard, clackety clack. And I actually have a keyboard that sounds like a typewriter, so it's great. But the plotting part to me is a lot of fun, because you're like, and then we're going to need something here, and then you realize it doesn't work, and then you're adding in characters, and you're like, what's their backstory, and can we work any part of that in? And you know what I'm saying? And it just grows. But then sometimes you have to scale it back. You know what I'm saying? So it's nice to just be able to do one book and say, this is it. This is done. It's there. And because you said they'll write 2 books and never get to the third in a series, readers, especially nowadays with the rise of the indie author and stuff like that, are very hesitant to buy from an author whose series isn't complete if they're not well known, because they don't want to have that that happen to them, where they're 2 books into a series they love, and then the author's like, screw writing, I don't like it.
Right. I mean, or even think like George R.R. Martin, who I think is just wrote himself into a corner and doesn't know how to get himself out of it. And I would feel, I think me personally, I would feel like I have to finish it somehow. I'd have to get that to readers. I think that once I sort of start a project, it's hard for me to kind of put it away. I have to kind of finish it. I have to get it to the end of it. Yeah. Even if it's something, I mean, I've had short stories that I finished and they'll never see the light of day because they weren't good or whatever. I just, couldn't get them to work. I still have to finish them to a certain point before I decide, like, no, I'm not going to work on this anymore because it's not working for whatever reason.
Oh, exactly. So aside from the books in your, well, first of all, I had mentioned earlier the train car thing. Mm-hmm. Private. Can you talk about that? I don't. It's a private train car, so I wasn't sure if you were like someone's like chauffeur on a train car. Like,
no. So I worked for a company called what were they called now? UP or something like that. I forget the name of them, but they were doing Pullman cars, which people in Chicago would know what Pullman cars are. They were really big back in the day. We even have a Pullman neighborhood. So they would take old cars from anywhere between, I think our oldest one was 1918, and then the newest one was like 1945, and they would redo them and they'd rebuild them. So we had like dome cars, which were, double deckers that have like the glass tops. That's where we do like most of our restaurant. They're the ones with the galleys and the bottom and everything. So those tended to be like our restaurant or bar service cars. And then we'd have different kinds of, we'd have a lounge car and we have sleeper cars. So they redesigned Iowa Pacific Holdings. That was the name of the company before I forget. So they had rebuilt all of these cars, and the idea was that they would be pulled by Amtrak to different areas. So, and the first one they decided to do was the city of New Orleans train trip. So Chicago to New Orleans. So I did that for about 3.5 years. I went to a couple different places, like we did New York. We did a train trip out in San Francisco that went from San Francisco to Reno. And I did that for like 7 weeks. So I traveled a little bit, but my main route was from Chicago to New Orleans. And I would leave Chicago on Thursday, get to New Orleans on Friday, and then I'd have Friday night and Saturday and Sunday morning off to hang out in New Orleans. And then I'd leave on Sunday night and get back on Tuesday and then have Wednesday and Thursday off and repeat. So I spent I was like, New Orleans became like my home away from home for a long time. Like I was there actually more than I was in Chicago, for the most part. And it was really cool. I mean, we had a lot of people that would come down, and it was, kind of expensive, but it was an all you can eat, all you can drink. It was all included in your ticket. And it was a great experience, but they just couldn't get enough ridership to keep it going, unfortunately. So,
that's sad.
Yeah, that's what ended up killing it in the end. Actually, they had a couple of famous people, and Jessica Lange wrote it once.
Nice.
Yeah, from American Horror Story. Her and I think it was her niece, were on it, and she was very, very nice, very polite. Obviously, American Horror Story was pretty popular at that time, because this would have been 2013 to 2016 was when it was running. 2012, 2016. So it was a great experience, and I loved it, but they just couldn't get the ridership, and they eventually had to fold. But a lot of the stuff that I write in Portraits of Decay came from those experiences of being down there all the time and just kind of exploring the city as much as possible. That
was actually going to be something else I asked, is how much so thank you for answering that question. Yeah. I don't have to ask it anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably a big part of my life because it was also the first place that me and my wife went for a vacation when we were first started dating. Actually, we went down there, and then 6 months later, I got the job on the train. And we were down there for a week, and I just fell in love with the city. And then, when 2020 came around, and I was trying to figure out like what I wanted to do with my writing. And I was writing a lot of short stories, but I wanted to write a novel. I really wanted to write a New Orleans, a love letter to New Orleans in a certain way. So when I started writing this novel, we went back 4 or 5 times, and I would like take pictures of the places I wanted to use, the cemetery, the places, the houses that they live in are actually real houses that I took pictures of. And so everywhere that is in it, even the art studio that he's in was a real art studio down there. The only thing that I kind of made up a little bit was the voodoo shop, which was basically, I took about 3 or 4 different voodoo shops and kind of made one out of it, because I couldn't find one that had everything I wanted it, because some of it, some of them are like the real voodoo, like the real religion of voodoo, which I wanted in there. And then some of them are the tourist versions, or what we think of the Hollywood version of voodoo, with all the dolls and the grease. And so I kind of wanted to have a mixture of both of those.
Yeah.
So I just kind of took pictures of all of it and then kind of built one, imagined one in my head. And obviously I don't know if there's actually swamp witches out in the swamp, but I definitely spent a lot of time in the bayou. Actually, the train used to go right through the bayou as we were going into New Orleans. And then I, spent a lot of time out there too. So yeah, I wanted to make it as realistic as possible. And then learning some of the Cajun language and Creole language and what they call the Yat language, which is their form of slang. Like I did a lot of talking with people, and I took some classes, and I read a lot of books about it and did tons of research because I wanted it to be as authentic as possible.
That's wonderful and very commendable as well, because I know a lot of authors, some authors, I don't want to say a lot, but there are authors out there, I'll leave it at that, who write and make stuff up that they don't know about instead of doing the research into it. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so it's nice to see when an author actually takes some dedication to do what you did and learn the culture as much as you can instead of just making gross assumptions. So
I think I'm always, for one thing, especially in New Orleans, I've heard of New Orleans making fun of books that take place down there. They're like, this author has no idea what they're talking about. You know what I mean? Obviously they came down there and had a vacation at one point in time and decided to write about it and did no other research. So I didn't want to be that person. But in all my writing, I think research is one of the funnest things. It's also like, my wife's always like, can you write about like Spain so we can go travel? Like, you know what I mean? Can you write like, so she loves it because I like using real settings, like real places. So for me, that's kind of the fun of it, because it is like, gives me a reason to go travel there and visit there and do a lot of research, and especially about the culture. And like, I love all that kind of stuff. So for me, I think that's part of the fun of writing and getting to learn those new things.
Some authors, writers, whether it's TV, books, movies, they will fictionalize real places a little bit for sake of the story. Like in one of my favorite shows, The Mentalist, you can go from Sacramento to Colorado in 4 hours, which is completely unrealistic. Like,
right. Right. That's not going to happen.
But for the sake of storytelling, they make it happen. And if you ever get a hold of like the Bible for the show or the pitch for the show, they even mention it's a fictionalized, California for storytelling purposes. I did that a little bit. I have a scene where they're in New Orleans and they're at Tippy Tina's for a show and in a recording studio, and they go to like the beignet shops and stuff like that. And I use the real names, but I fictionalize the locations just for ease of storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
Since you put so much research into your book, did you try and keep everything as accurate as you can, or did you find yourself having to do some of that fictionalization just for the ease of the story?
I think there's a couple moments where you kind of have to. Obviously, like I said, the voodoo shop is fictionalized because I couldn't find a voodoo shop that fit exactly what I wanted. So I kind of incorporated 4 different ones. Or there's like the apartment which Neva lives, the outside's real, but I had to kind of use, I couldn't get into one of those apartments. I actually tried, but there was just no way that anyone's going to let me walk around the apartment. So I was just like looking at pictures online of apartments that were similar. So I had to fictionalize that a little bit. So there was like things like that, but I mean, I would even go as far as like mapping distances, like how long would it take from them to get to the city into the bayou? Like, so so I was actually trying to be as accurate as possible. There's a part at the end where Jefferson does this long walk, and I think it would probably take a little bit longer than it takes in the book because I needed to get him to the end at this point, so maybe that's not quite as accurate as it would be. But for the most part, I really try to be as accurate and as real as possible, because I think for me, that makes the horror even scarier, is when you're like, oh, this really could, there's so much fantastical things in it as far as like the gore and what happens to this person. So when you set that with the reality of things, I think that just makes it that much more scarier for me personally.
No, that is wonderful. And yeah, like when you're saying you kept the distances kind of as real as possible, I was like, oh, that's so hard to do. That is so hard to do.
It is. And like, you can drive out there and measure it and things like that. And you're like, okay. And it's always weird because like, Chicago, we talk about things either in blocks or whatever. And so every city or every town has their own way of describing distances. So that might not be quite as accurate, because it's always hard to figure out how. I was looking for that. Like, I'd be like, how do they talk? If someone was asking for directions, like, so you're trying to find people in New Orleans down there and asking them for directions just to see how they say it, because everybody has their own way of saying things. Like, and so like anytime I do that, I try to be as accurate as possible. Obviously, there's going to be probably someone who's like, no, he got this wrong. And that's okay. I mean, I can only do so much research. I don't, I live down there sort of part-time, but it's not like I'm from there. But I wanted it to be as accurate as I possibly could get it.
So you're from Chicago. I'm originally from Chicago. And like you said, everything's in blocks, and I always did it in minutes.
Yeah.
How far away is that? Oh, right now it's about 10 minutes away.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no relatable concept to that, except it's going to take you 10 minutes. That could be in rush hour traffic, a 3-block drive.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Or a 2-block drive, depending on where you're at. It could also be 10 miles away. It just depends on, but roughly, if you didn't know, it was 20 minutes.
Yep. Yeah. And then we'll be like, and city blocks are always weird here in Chicago because they're different sizes based on where you're at.
Yeah.
So just saying like 3 blocks really doesn't mean a whole lot. And you're still kind of guessing anyway, a little bit. You're like, you just go, 3 blocks that way, take a right. And it's like a few more blocks down that way. And you'll be right there. You'll see it.
Yeah. And my geography and sense of direction is horrible. So like when we go back to Chicago and stuff, and like we're just walking around like wherever and stuff, because we do eventually one day want to move back, and we go there just to make sure we still want to move back. I forget how big like the upper and lower Wacker Drive is.
Yeah.
That's still usable, like there's stores and content and stuff there. And then you walk a little too far, or get to like that unspeakable 3rd level of Wacker where you end up at the city impound, which I've been at many times.
I was just there recently. So
did you do what I did and forget to move your car on street cleaning day?
It wasn't me. It was my wife. She parked in a place that she thought was okay and didn't realize they had turned someone had turned the sign around and she didn't see it. So it was a total accident. But it happened to be on a day that I had an event and I needed the car to go to Milwaukee. So it ended up being a whole big hassle. But yeah, just going down there is like, I'm going to have to write a story there at some point because it's so grim. It's like, oh, this is why they put the Dark Knight down here, because it is grim and gross. And
it is grim and gross. And they've cleaned it up a lot. Like when I was in college back in the late 90s, early 2000s, I would get my car towed and I'd have to walk to get my car picked up from one of 2 impounds. And one of them was on the other side of Cabrini Green.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd walk through Cabrini Green, but I had like this full-length duster trench coat. I looked like some wannabe Blade guy, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And people were nice. It wasn't like in the Dennis Leary movie Judgment Night, you know what I'm saying, where they're just kids, they're who aren't, they're in Cabrini Green, they're in the projects, but they're not these like criminals like the media makes them out to be. And it was a wave of a hand, how you doing, and just keep walking and doing your thing and leaving people alone. They left you alone.
Yep.
And now it's gone. Like I remember seeing them tearing it down and then not being back there for a while. And now it's like these overpriced condos and apartments and Trader Joe's, you know what I'm saying, and whatever. And I'm just like Whole Foods, whatever. And it's a whole different area than it used to be. And now it's like the place to be. You got Uncle Julio's Hacienda down there. And I'm just like, it's insane. Like, I don't know where you live in Chicago, and I don't know if you want to say what neighborhood, we're on a podcast.
I actually don't live that far from Old Town, so I know exactly. And I used to work in Old Town when Cabrini Green, because I moved here in 98. So Cabrini Green was still around. And I used to work at a bar called Great Scots that was in Old Town at that time. And so you would see, we'd ride our bicycles through Cabrini Green to go home. So, and I never thought much of it, and I lived in Humboldt Park at that time, which was no easy way either. So, but I think they all knew we didn't have money, so there was no like, oh, this guy's got no money. He's got no, cash on. He's poor, so I'll just leave him alone.
Like, we used to hang out. Like, I know Great Scots. I can't remember if I've been there or had been there, because when I was 18, no one carded me. Like, I was able to walk in bars and no one carded me. And I don't know if part of that was because of I was in Lincoln Park at the time, and it was like, oh, it's all college kids, don't card them. Or if I just really did look that much older. But we'd go to like Shenanigans down on the Gold Coast, you know what I'm saying? And a lot of the Gold Coast bars and everywhere. And it's such a fun town if you like to drink. Like, there's just a lot of drinking in Chicago.
It's still that way.
One of my favorite.
Orange is the same way too.
Now, you were down there in 98, and even if you weren't drinking there, or if you weren't drinking at the time for whatever reason, did you ever in Lincoln Park on the corner of Fullerton and Halstead ever eat at a Mexican restaurant called Fiesta Mexicana?
Yes. Oh yeah.
They got me through my college years. that Mexican restaurant fed me so many times throughout my college years and gave me so much alcohol, and then they lost their lease, and it was like a part of me died to know that they had closed down after 30 something years. And I was just like, this is probably some of the best Mexican food, you know what I'm saying? Like without being like a taco stand.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was one of those places when you didn't have a whole lot of money, you could eat really good for pretty cheap. And yeah, those places unfortunately just are not as around as much. I mean, we still have some, but they're harder to find. And I used to actually live in that area for a while, not more recent, but me and my wife lived in Lincoln Park for a while. And there's just a lot that's changed there. I mean, the blues clubs, I mean, you only have Kingston Mines anymore. All the blues clubs are gone. And so it's a very different city. Yeah, blues is gone now. And so, I mean, you just see the city change. It's how it is. That's actually the new book I'm working on now is about some of that. About it takes place in Chicago and talking about the punk rock scene in the 80s and then present time and the differences and how things kind of come back around, but you know, how things sort of change as well.
That's the thing about big cities is they are ever changing. They will never be what they were back when I was living there, and they'll never be what they were even when you lived in Lincoln Park. If you go back now, no matter how recent you live there, it'll be different.
Oh yeah, we went back there not that long ago, and we're like, oh, that's a new place, or that's a new place, or oh, that place shut down. That's sad, you know, like your hangouts sort of go away and new things pop up, and you know, you have stuff that sticks around and you're happy that happens. I mean, we've had restaurants that have been around for 50, 60 years that are still around, but pandemic was really hurt a lot of things, and you know, taxes keep hurting things, so it makes it difficult. But I mean, I still love this city, so it's obviously why I'm still here.
So as someone who is a musician, a bass player, and the lack of the blues scene in Kingston Mines, do you ever get to play during their open mic night at Kingston Mines and jam with some of those guys?
I haven't. I mean, I know people who have. I love the blues, but it wasn't really my style of music that I played very much. So I was a little bit more on the rock side, metal side. I did some funk and jazz stuff at one point too. But I loved going and check it out. We lived literally right around the corner from Kingston Mines. So
nice.
But it was always packed. And the guys that are playing there have been playing blues for 30, 40, 50 years. I mean, you got some been. So I think I would be almost too nervous to step on stage with those guys because they would probably laugh me off the stage. But I have a buddy of mine who's a tremendous guitar player, and he's a great blues guitar player, and he would have no problem walking up there and jam with those guys, and has. I mean, we were down one time in Memphis, and they asked if anybody wanted to come up on stage, and the next thing I know is I look over and he's running towards the stage. Got on with these guys who, you know, the harmonica player had played with Muddy Waters, you know, and he was
nice.
He was the band leader, and my buddy had no problem getting up there and jamming with them. So I love kind of seeing that thing, but I think for me, I'd probably be a little bit too nervous just to jump on stage.
It's good to know your limitations because as a metal guitarist, I took my guitar there once for one of the open mic nights, and I was like, oh, I can't get up there. And my buddy pushed me up on stage and just made an utter fool of myself because blues is a different, you know, it's a completely different monster than rock or metal or, you know, even classical music. And to be pushed up in that situation and just be that nervous with these great blues players who, like you said, have been playing for 30, 40, 50 years. It was an experience I would never want to relive or have anyone, you know, live like that. But on the good note, no one remembers. I'm just going to tell a bunch of people now and they'll know I made a fool of myself. But no one that night's going to remember that. They're going to remember the cool shit, you know. But it's different, you know, when it's something you don't know as well. But I'm assuming you've been playing for a number of years.
Yeah, I started playing when I was 13, so I'm almost 50 now. So I've been playing for quite a few years. I mostly do a lot of I'll do some recordings with friends or getting together with friends and jamming. The writing kind of took over my artistic world, I guess, in a certain sense. But I still have two basses. I still have a guitar here, so I still pluck them. A lot of times I'll be writing and I'll just be messing around with the guitar or the bass at the same time as I'm trying to think of ideas. Or sometimes if, you know, the writing's not working that day for whatever reason, I'll go and do that just to have, maybe see if I can get something working just artistically. And that usually helps a lot. So, and I approach the kind of, you talk about, knowing your limitations. I think there's a great thing in any kind of art is knowing your limitations and knowing what you do well and knowing where you need to improve and how you can improve that and how you can use your strengths, but how you can, I wouldn't say hide your weaknesses, but knowing what you need to do to make those better. And so I'm always kind of like looking for ways to improve in both writing and playing music.
Commendable. As a bassist, are you a thumper, like a slap bassist, or are you a pick bassist?
So I played both fingers and pick. I didn't do a lot of slapping stuff. I did some, if the song called for it. But that's kind of how I looked at everything. It was always if the song called for it. I wasn't a flashy bass player by any means. I've always tried to play for the song.
Yes.
So whatever it needs, I wanted to be locked down with the drummer. So I think that was kind of like my main focus. So the great thing about being a bass player is you're kind of in the background a little bit. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't really trying to show off as much at that point. So my focus was more about, how can I strengthen the song, the guitars, the music. And then, I can get off stage and go have a beer afterwards and not have to have people asking me a billion questions usually, other than the other bass player in the other band who wants to talk about, like, what kind of instruments you're using or amps you're using. There was always those conversations, which were fine.
Always. I was never a tech guy because I've been playing for 30 something years and I was never like a gearhead like that. It was, I like what I like and I don't know why, you know what I'm saying? It gets the sound. Are you that way? Or are you like, no, I got to have like the latest pedals and effects?
No, I use actually a very limited amount of pedals when I played. I've always been particular to the Fender Jazz basses, which was the basses that I own and I use, or Music Mans. I like the Music Man basses. So, and those are more about feel than anything. I mean, yeah, they sound great and I love the sound of them because I want that like thick, warm tone that those basses can give.
Yeah.
But it also, I don't have huge hands. Like I don't have the normal like bass player long figured hands. So I looked for things that had a little bit of a thinner neck, had a little bit more of a comfortable feel for me. And then as far as amps, I always played amp picks just because I felt like they went well with a Fender bass. And then I wouldn't use that many pedals. I would use like a distortion pedal, chorus pedal. And then sometimes I would either use like a wah-wah or an envelope filter.
Ooh.
Nice. And then I would have just my tuner. And that would be usually all the pedals I had.
Yeah.
Didn't really see I didn't feel like I needed much more than that. I would say probably the chorus and distortion I use the most because I use them. I would try to get tones with those. Where I think the envelope filter, the wall, that was just like if a song called for something like that I could kick it in and have fun. And those are just fun to play with too. I just think they're fun. Yeah. Fun to, especially an envelope filter. I really love an envelope filter over a wall, even though the wall you have a little bit more control over. I just kind of like the sound of an envelope filter with a bass. I just think they're you can get some really cool, weird sounds with it. So yeah, I wouldn't say I was a big gearhead by any means. And luckily, like one of the other guitar players I played with wasn't either. He was just more like, he was a guitar guy.
Yeah.
He was like, he likes, and I think he owns like 15 guitars at this point. I don't even know. He may even own more than that. But we are like more like the guitar bass guys. We like to go check out that stuff. Where I knew, other members of my group or other guitar player was more of a gearhead who, he loved pedals but it fit his guitar playing. So, and it's always cool to have kind of like different people in your bands when you're playing with, multiple musicians.
It's nice to talk to someone who's not someone who wanted to be the overly showboaty musician guy. You know what I'm saying? Because I was never a shredder and I was always like, give me a nice walking bass line if I'm playing bass than trying to be the guy from Dream Theater. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's not really my type of music, I suppose. Like that wasn't what I was listening to. I mean, I grew up more on like old school metal and punk rock. So that was kind of like more of my flavor. Obviously later on I got into some other stuff. I really love jazz music. I will not say that I'm a jazz bass player by any means. Like those guys blow me out of the water, like and I didn't think that I was ever going to be like this super incredible bass player. I thought I was good, but yeah, I wasn't trying to like go out there and blow anyone away. I think I knew like you said, I knew my limitations of what I could do, and I just tried to stay in that pocket.
So encompassing both the music and the writing, do you have any authors or musicians who influenced you in your style?
As far as an author goes, I mean, the first person I can think of that they're the person that really made me want to write horror would be Clive Barker. So, I mean, I just read him as a young kid, and he was kind of the first one that showed me you could write these kind of horrific things and scary things and get away with it. So, he was a big influence on me, as far as like who set me on that kind of path to write horror. As far as bass player goes, I mean, my first one would be Steve Harris from Iron Maiden, would be the first.
Nice.
The galloping bass lines. I mean, that right away was kind of like the first person who I was like, I saw bass and I was like, I want to play bass. And then I had an older brother who was a big Rush fan. So even though I wasn't as big of a Rush fan, I understood that Geddy Lee was this incredible bass player. And so I would say like those were kind of the reasons I wanted to play bass. Also everyone else was playing guitar and drum. So I was like, well, if I play bass, I can play with tons of different people, so I won't have to worry about ever not being in a band. But yeah, I would say Clive Barker and Steve Harris, as far as like the two people in those different art forms, are the people who kind of set me on the path of why I chose the instrument I played and why I chose the genres that I played in.
No, that is wonderful. Before we wrap up, I have two last questions for you.
Sure.
One, where can we find you? Give me all the shameless self-promotion on your socials, your websites, where you can buy your books, all of that stuff.
So jrblains.com is my website. If you go and subscribe there, I'll send you a free Ghost Revenge story. But you can also get the book off the website. You can also, there's links to a lot of my short stories that's out there. You can go to ruidonbooks.com and buy from them. I'm also in Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and in bookstores wherever they sell books. If they don't have them in your bookstore, ask them and we will send them to the bookstore. As far as like where you can find me, I'm on social media. I'm on Facebook. So it's always usually JR Blaine 76 is usually my handles for all my social media. So Instagram I'm on, and Blue Sky are like the three main ones I do anything on. I would say Instagram is probably the one I do the most on. But I kind of do a lot of writing stuff on Blue Sky. So if you want to talk writing or chat about anything, that's the good place to kind of get me talking about that. Facebook's more of just somewhere to market and have friends on it. So, but I also have a link tree, which is also Linktree JR Blaines, which could link you to all those things. So you can just go there and find me there. So that's kind of where you can find me.
Nice. Thank you so much. And lastly, if an aspiring writer came up to you and asked for advice, one piece of advice, what would that be?
Be yourself. Don't try to be anyone else, even if it's, we all see things that are being popular in certain genres at certain times, whether it be vampires are popular right now or literary horror is popular. That's what's like big right now. Don't feel you need to like follow that path. Because by the time you are writing it, it may be that trend already might be changing or over. So the best thing to do is start your own path and do your own thing. And I think that's in any kind of art. Just do what you want to do. Write the story you want to write the music you want to listen to. If you want to listen, I wrote a book called Portraits of Decay because I wanted to write about New Orleans and voodoo and black magic and do a tragic love tale. So I wrote that. When I played in bands, it was I wanted to do this hardcore rock band at that time, or I wanted to be a funk rock jazz thing at the time. So it's whatever I was interested in. It wasn't because I thought was what was popular at the time. Actually, a lot of times it wasn't what was popular at all. So So that would be like my advice is if you're gonna in any kind of art, obviously, study your influences and you can learn from them, but eventually find your own voice and just go with it and know that you're going to get some rejections, you're going to get pushback, but in the end, you'll be more satisfied with what you're doing because you're doing something that's authentic to you.
Thank you. That is probably some of my favorite advice. Be you. That's it. Be yourself. I want to thank you for being with us today. You have been an absolute wonderful person to talk with, and we're going to have you back sometime in the future, man. So thank you so much for everything.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. This was a lot of fun, and I appreciate it, and it was great talking to you, and I look forward to doing it again sometime.
Thank you. Thank you. And for everyone who has watched with us, thank you so much. Follow us along on Drinking with Authors. Listen to us on anywhere podcasts are or on YouTube. And until next time, remember, Portraits of Decay, anywhere you can get it. It costs nothing to be kind. Be good. We love you.
Thank you for listening to Drinking with Authors. Join us next time for another fun conversation with an author over drinks.